A few weeks ago I made a video talking about Kentish Town Tube Station and the fact that it is currently closed for refurbishment. One of the things people commented on the most was the name. Now, I've lived in London all my life, so to me there's nothing odd about Kentish Town as a name. But when you sit down and think about it, it does raise questions. Which is curious, because when I stand up and think about it, I can't think of anything. But yeah, it's not in Kent, it's not the county town of Kent. What does the name mean? Does it imply, as some commenters suggested, that it's merely sort of reminiscent of Kent? In what way? My initial assumption was that the name derived from a person. What often happens is that places in London, and no doubt elsewhere, derive their names from the fact that the land around there was owned by an aristocrat associated with a place. For instance, Leicester Square is nowhere near Leicester, but the Earl of Leicester once had a house there. Was there some Kentish aristo in Kentish Town? Nope. In fact, the name has nothing to do with Kent whatsoever. It is a very old name indeed, likely originally Saxon or perhaps even Celtic. One theory is that it gets its name from a person named Kentish or some variant thereof. That's quite a common source for place names, although I have to admit I find it a little boring. Fortunately, most sources I've looked at agree that it was probably not named after Mr. Kentish. Rather, they suggest that it was originally Ken Ditch, or possibly Caen Ditch. Now, while I love the idea that there was a person named Ken Ditch, it means riverbed. But is there a river around here? Yes, but like all the evidence needed to make a conspiracy theory work, you just can't see it. The river in question is the Fleet, which runs from Hampstead Heath to Blackfriars Bridge. I've talked about the history of the Fleet before, but the short version, it was a very substantial waterway. It could boast mills and was even a canal in the 17th and 18th centuries. Unfortunately, it was also a convenient place to dump rubbish and sewage, and it was taking up useful space right in the middle of the city. So over the centuries, more and more of it was built over until more or less the entire thing was underground. Even though most people probably don't even know it's there, it's had a huge impact on the naming of London. Obviously you have Fleet Street, and Kentish Town, as we discussed. You may recall a previous video in which I pointed out that Holborn comes from Hollow Bourne, the bourne in question being the Fleet. The wells at Clerkenwell and Bridewell were supplied from the Fleet. King's Cross used to be called Battle Bridge because there was a crossing over the river there. You might even argue that after the Thames, it's probably the river that's had the greatest impact on London. Any other possibilities for Kentish Town? Well, I did once encounter a rather bonkers historian who believed that the name was derived from a certain vulgar word for a certain part of a woman's anatomy that we do not discuss on this family-friendly channel that is monetized. But she didn't seem to have any evidence to back that up. It also relied on the river having always been underground, which of course it was not back in the Saxon era. So, for me personally, I'm happy to stick with the riverbed explanation. It seems to make sense. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If so, please do leave a like, and you may wish to subscribe for more on the history of London and other subjects that interest me. I would like, as always, to thank my donors on Ko-fi and Patreon and here on YouTube for your support. You are the bed to my river. And I'll see you all again very soon. Cheerio.